And I think you need a couple more gavels.
I have 2 more over here.
Oh, perfect. It's not a real gavel unless it's crystal.
I know. Well, that's the one I'm missing.
So Ken, this is Rick here. I remember you accusing me of something at the beginning of my year about the way I rang the bell or gaveled meetings into, what'd you call it?
It was just dainty.
Yeah, dainty, that's right.
Yeah.
Dainty.
Yeah.
Well, it appears that whoever used that gavel did not have that same problem.
No.
Ships flying everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost like a Gallagher comedian-like president, right? Yeah, smashing watermelons or something.
Smashing watermelons. I do have a watermelon in the refrigerator, actually. And I have my Gallagher gavel, but that's over on the other side of the house. But I can't do it here because I don't want to make a humongous mess of my house. One thing if I was at the California Club or whatever, but
yeah, trash it there.
You should know that the new chef at the California Club is introducing a whole bunch of new lunch options that we are going to get to choose from, and I'm quite excited about it.
Hot dogs?
You know it.
Oh dear.
Josh, are you still out in the garage, or is this your? Are you inside the house for this one?
I had to relocate myself inside the house because I have air conditioning in here.
I gotta tell you, it brought us. I don't want to admit that brought a smile to my face when you posted that picture of the thermometer. And I'm thinking of you as this high-powered partner at this massive law firm that bills at $1,000 an hour in the 100-degree heat of your garage, building by the minute. It really made me laugh, and I apologize for laughing at your expense, but
that's okay. I became very unproductive, very sleepy out there.
Yeah.
I could just imagine you just sweating in like a white tank top and your boxer shorts, billing your clients out in the garage.
It was not comfortable. So yes, I'm now in the house. I've actually got my work computer over here. You can't see it, and this is the home computer, and I'm working here and zooming over here.
Well, I'm glad you were allowed back in.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Azim.
Okay, well, it's 11:30, and Melinda hasn't given me any kind of notice. Am I supposed to just get this thing? Am I just supposed to get this thing started? Do we even have all our people that I need here?
I mean, you're the one with the experience on this here.
And the gavel. When did you ever start getting permission to do anything?
It's a new world. It's a new world, Mr. President. It's a new world, and
just start the meeting, and then if everybody's not in place, we'll all know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna give it. I think I need to give it a second because the first person on deck I don't see. Oh, I see Charlene. Thank you. See, now I can start the meeting because we have our first speaker on there. Okay, Okay, well, you hear that? Welcome everyone to the, what are we on, the 7th meeting of the 112th year. I think it's the 20th Zoom meeting. I'm not counting. Melinda, do you know what the stat is? But as you can see, I am not
Day 12,213 of pandemic life.
Yes. So welcome for our guests. I think we have some guests here. I am not the current president of LA5. I am not nearly as good looking or as charismatic as Matt Ball, but I am Ken Chong, and I am a past president, and I've been asked to fill in. A lot of people don't know that there is a LA5 Camp David, and Rotary presidents get to go and use it. So sometimes we need fill-ins, and so I guess I'm going to be chairing the meeting today. I'm going to go right into our inspirational thought by our LA5 board member, Charlene Dimas Pinedo. I'm sorry. And take it away, Charlene.
Okay, so good morning, everyone, and thank you, past President Ken Chong. And it's Dima's Peinado.
This is okay to have on.
All right, anyway, so,
Rotary Club.
So good morning. Let us pray for wisdom and patience. The times we live in call us to connect at a deeper level, to overcome the many challenges we face. We pray for those impacted by the global pandemic and the families that have suffered or are suffering the loss of loved ones. We search for wisdom and patience in trying to understand why we have communities in the most prosperous country that feel disconnected and disenfranchised. We look to our better angels to find common ground and more personal engagement. Now imagine for a second that you are a child or a young person and ask yourself, how would you deal with the issues confronting our children, our youth? They have been out of school, navigating online learning, robbed of proms, graduations, and even their friends. They are absorbing more stress and trauma than usual. We play an important role in lifting their voices, our children's voices, so that it's empathic, loving, and peaceful, as this will make our community a better place in the future. We must look for ways to practice empathy with those we love, our families. We shouldn't stop there. How are we connecting with our communities, especially those communities in need? Our Rotarian core values, which include messages of bringing greater world understanding and peace, serving with compassion and hope, ask us to meet others where they are at and aim to make it better for others. It is my prayers that we look to the strength of the human spirit to guide us in managing and understanding how to empower others. As Rotarians, we are called to serve those most vulnerable and act to spread peace and inspire kindness for all. It is my prayer that we make every effort to touch the lives of those less fortunate than us, to lift one another to create more empathy and understanding. As Rotarians, we are ready for this challenge. There's no better time than now. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlene, for those great words. Well, welcome everyone. We have a lot of guests. Does anyone want to shout out like who's from the furthest? There's a lot of names on here. I don't know if we can't even do that, but there's a lot of names I don't recognize, which I think is fantastic. I see Calvin Chan, my brother, sitting there, who I've not seen in a long time. So it's good to see you. It's good to see Debbie. I see Chris Cox from Wilshire Club is visiting us today. So thank you. And get a little feedback.
And you've got one from Alexandria, Virginia.
Who's from Alexandria, Virginia?
Gant Redmond, guest of John Green.
Welcome, Gant. Thank you very much for visiting us. Do we have any other visiting Rotarians from other clubs? Unmute yourself. I'd love to hear from you. Anyone else? I don't see any other ones. Well, fantastic. Well, that's pretty good from Alexandria. So welcome.
You have quite a few from Long Beach. There's quite a few people from Long Beach right now.
Who do we got from Long Beach?
Cam Doherty Killingsworth. I see Henry Fung, Madrid Zimmerman. Who else do I see on here? Sorry, guys, speak up.
Nelson Kerr.
There you go.
Welcome.
Nelson.
Welcome, Rotary Long Beach. Thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for inviting us.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Okay. To all of our guests, for those that are too shy and you have your cameras off and you don't want to speak up, this applause for you too. Okay. So welcome everyone.
Ken,
yeah.
Have the folks from Long Beach ever heard what John has repeated from Alexandria, Virginia?
I don't know. Does the Honorable John Green?
Yes, it's a wonderful story, but.
Okay, well, great. Well, it's also good to always see John Green on there. Well, anyway.
President Ken, can I just jump in? So when I visited Alexandria, they called me up and they told a story, and they got into this, what they call a little ditty of a Rotarian in 1948 who came from Southern California. And when they called on him to say something, he said, "I come from Long Beach, California, a city on a
silvery strand
beside a sapphire sea,
where golden dreams come true." And we gave him the book.
Saying that with me, the whole room said it. 50 or 60 people said it in unison. And to get to the punchline is too long for right now. Has been interested in it. All right, thank you.
Hi, John.
Always love hearing a little bit of that about Rotary history. So welcome, everyone. Okay, well, as a lot of you saw initially, I am not Matt Ball. I am just a placeholder today, filling in for him while he is traveling, and so welcome. I'm going to go right into our reintroducing. Everyone knows her. Everyone loves her. Melinda Monterosa, our Vice President and Program Chair. And even more importantly, my executive producer for the Washed Up Presidents podcast. And I'm going to let her introduce our speaker today.
Thank you. Just one quick note. The last episode that was published, you very clearly stated I was your favorite person in Rotary. It's in the world now. You can't take it back. So
I just said it again, didn't I?
I'm just making it, making it last, relishing in the moment. That's all. All right. Well, we are in for a treat today. I don't know if I would call this, I pulled in a favor, because I don't know what favors Paul Single owes me, but we've done road shows together and produced many events together, and somehow he was still willing to be nice enough to visit us today. But Paul Single is from City National Rochdale. He's one of our managing directors and a senior portfolio manager, but he's so much more than that. He has 35 years of experience managing investment portfolios. He's responsible for the research, analysis, and implementation of various core taxable fixed income strategies, not just for Rochdale, but for City National Bank. He's a member of the firm's Asset Allocation Committee, which is the group that determines the most appropriate balance of investments for client portfolios. He's also a member of City National Bank's Asset Liability Committee, which is the risk management group that evaluates, monitors, and approves practices relating to the bank's balance sheet and capital structure. He is a frequent lecturer on the economy and investments and is a contributing author for the monthly and quarterly economic reports. More than that, he's just a generally amazing guy. And I have, in my most recent previous life, did a lot of corporate events, and a lot of those were econ related events. And Paul, I have found to be, is one of the best lecturers and educators on the economy. He has a way of translating things into speak that even someone like me can understand. So with that, I give you Mr. Single.
Can you hear me now? Okay, great. Can you see the screen now? Let's see if I can master that. Wonderful. Thank you for inviting me here. It's really a great honor to be able to come and chat with you about what's going on in the economy. We've got several charts here to go through and talk about what is happening to the U.S. economy. And this first chart, I think, does a great job in terms of showing how behavior has changed in this recession compared to all the other recessions we've had in the past. The two lines here, the top one, the dark blue one, is the amount of money that people spend going to supermarkets or liquor stores month in and month out. The lighter blue line is how much they spend at restaurants and bars. And the data goes back to 2000, and the gray columns, when you see this in a recession, an economic chart, it's a recessionary period. So the one to the far left was the dot-com. And you can see people's behavior didn't really change a whole lot. It was a very short recession and very mild. The global financial crisis in the middle of the chart, it changed behavior a little bit, especially in regards to going out to dinner. But we continue to spend money month in and month out. Go to the far right, that's the recession we're in right now. And you can see the dramatic change in people's behavior. The restaurants and bars, the light blue line, it just plummeted with the stay in place orders. It's come back a little bit, but restaurants are part open, it's usually just outside. It's a hard slug for restaurants in the aspect that, basically speaking, for a restaurant, 30% of the cost is labor, 30% is food, 30% is rent, and 10% profit. Well, if you can only bring in maybe half of what you had in terms of patronage, it's pretty hard to make a living. But it is starting to bounce back a little bit. Bars, by and large, in most states continue to be closed. The dark blue line, what people spent at grocery stores and liquor stores, that one really shut up. I joke about that because my wife had a dining room table full of paper towels just in case there was a shortage. But management of household inventory has changed a little bit. It's come down, but it's still high. So people's behavior has moved quite a bit. Now take a look at the stock market, a completely different world. The stock market that we're living in right now is the vibrant red line. You can see where it dropped about 35% in about as many days. It has since bounced back, and within a 6-month period of time, it got back to the previous highs. Compare that to all the other bear markets in the stock market that we've had in recent time. On average, it took 1.5 years to get to the low before it started to bounce back up again, and it varies over time. But this time is so different for the stock market, mainly because of the actions by both the Federal Reserve Bank and the federal government. The Federal Reserve Bank came in, they dropped interest rates to near zero, and they started levering up their balance sheet, buying an awful lot of longer-term bonds to help push down consumer loans, like for auto loans and mortgages and so forth. And that really helped out quite a bit. They levered their balance sheet up so fast in a 10-week period, it equaled what they did last time around, which took over 6 years. This is how fast they moved this time around. The federal government at the same time offered an awful lot of relief, a little bit of stimulus, but an awful lot of relief. The stimulus was the $1,200 check that went to many taxpayers. The relief was like the CARES Act, $2.2 trillion in size, plus an extra $500 billion. This was enhanced unemployment insurance where households got an extra $600 a week. It's the PPP program, the payroll protection plan, that helped out an awful lot of small businesses be able to keep people on the payroll. And it was a whole bunch of other programs that they had to help out this economy. All of that has given the stock market some view that, things will get better, so buying stocks is pretty attractive. Other issues are that foreigners first came into the United States and invested here when when this crisis started, mainly because the European countries and a number of other countries were much slower to help stimulate their economy. So that helped out. And another story that they like to talk about in terms of why people are buying stocks, despite the fact that you have 27 million people unemployed, is the fact that there's no one can gamble on sports anymore. So all those sports bettors are now betting on the stock market. And you see that with options trading. That's the most levered bet of all, and that's gone up quite a bit in terms of volume. I'm not sure how true it is, but it sure makes a much story to tell. But the economy, we're going through different phases. The contraction, that started in February. That's when the recession started. That's official. They haven't decided when it ended yet, but it probably ended in April because in May we started to get much stronger economic data, especially with regards to labor market and also in regards to consumption. So right now we're in that transition phase, the period of time where we start to find out what parts of the economy are going to be doing well and what ones are not. Much of the early data is very strong because it's just the reopening. I mean, dentists were all of a sudden going back to work. Doctors were going back to work. Many other places were able to reopen again. So that caused a big jump in the amount of people that were employed. Not fully, but now we're at that stage where we're starting to find out what areas are going to not do so well, what won't open, or what will try to open and realize that they can't reopen. So the economic data over the next few months will probably be on the volatile side, again, representing what the true underlying weakness of this economy is. And then hopefully sometime by the fourth quarter or early parts of next year, we'll be in the recovery phase. And this is the part of the economy that will start growing at the pace that it had been beforehand, or probably a little bit stronger, mainly because of all the stimulus that's in the economy right now. But these charts here give a good idea of how severe the recession was. The chart on the left just shows the dollar value of the US economy, And you can see it's been marching up over the last few decades. But this recession, it fell so much that it wiped out 5.5 years of economic growth. The recession before that, the global financial crisis, took out 3.5 years of growth. And then the dot-com one, which I said was relatively mild. It just took out 6 months. But the trajectory of the economy is on the right-hand side. You can see the dashed line. The economy was growing at around a 2.25% pace pretty much throughout the entire expansion. It fell. It's growing now, and our forecast is that it'll be growing at a much faster pace than what that trend was. Again, mainly because of the fact that the economy was so strong going into this recession, and there's enough stimulus and enough relief to help out the economy. Now, to put this all in perspective, the chart on the left just shows you the severity of this. The economy fell 10.6%. That's a lot. If you look at all the other recessions since the end of World War II, we averaged just over 2% decline. The global financial crisis, which was compared closely with the Great Recession, was down 4%. This is more than twice that. What makes this even more impressive is the chart on the right. It did it in about 3 months. That's why they were very quick to be able to say this was a recession. It was pretty darn obvious, even to a bunch of academics back outside of Boston. It was quite severe and quite swift. Now, when looking at recessions and comparing them against expansions, it's important to keep this in perspective. Expansions tend to be a whole lot longer than recessions, and they tend to be a whole lot stronger than the decline. This one you can see in the very far right, it really did fall much more than all the others in terms of in any given quarter. But this is why people invest in stocks over the long run, because they take advantage of the price appreciation you get during the expansions and deal with the volatility you get during a recession. But the thing is, a recession does lead to higher unemployment, and that becomes a social problem. And that's where all of a sudden you have some sort of risks going on. This chart here is one of my favorite economic charts because look how linear it is. This is the job growth, the aggregate job growth since 2010, the worst of the job market from the previous recession. But look how linear that is. Most economic charts you see ups and downs and all over things, but it really just continued to grow month in and month out. Over to the far right, you can see it fell a little bit in March, but in April it plummeted. It almost wiped out 10 years of growth. It fell 20.5 million. That's how many jobs are lost. If you add up all the job losses of every recession since the end of World War II, that's about 22 million. So we almost equal to all the previous job losses from all the other recessions. It's starting to bounce back. We've recovered 42% of the job losses, but the recovery from here on is going to be pretty slow moving. The easy jobs have been gotten right now. Now, looking forward, it's going to be the much slower ones. And then, so the unemployment rate, you can see it right here. Again, I'm spending a lot of time on this because this is really the driving force of the economy. You need to have people employed so they have disposable income to spend. And it's the spending of money that drives economic growth. 2/3 of US economy is based on consumption. So you need to have people employed. But this chart here just puts this unemployment rate in perspective. See on the very far right, it shot up as high as almost 15%. It's come down a little bit. It's lower than the previous all-time high, but it's still above the high of what we had in the global financial crisis. It's still a bit of concern. And the job growth will probably be slow moving because it generally is. It doesn't just fall very quickly. This shows what happens in each one of the expansions, the average decline per year of the unemployment rate. And over time, you can see at the very bottom, the unemployment rate during expansion will fall about 0.6%. So that's telling us it's going to take a long, long time to get back to the level of unemployment that we had before. Furthermore, it's complicated by the fact that this economy now is so much different than it was back, in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and even early 70s. And this chart here does a great job in terms of showing it. It's the same sort of data, but it's just presented a little differently. If you look to the far left, it shows what's happening now, the sort of brown color. Payrolls fell more than 14% during the worst of this recession. It's starting to bounce back, and over time it will happen. But compare that to all the other recessions we've had since the end of World War II. If you look at the 2008, the sort of olive color, You can see it took more than 6 years, the payroll, to get back to the level we were at before that recession started. The recession before that, 2001, the recession before that, 1990, and even the one before that in the late 80s. It takes longer and longer. And that's a theme you see going on here. The more recent recessions, it takes longer to get back to the level of employment that we had beforehand. And the reason for that is the economy has changed. In the 50s, 60s, and 70s, I mean, we were the manufacturer of the world. When we went into a recession, because demand had dropped off, people would be laid off at their factories. The Fed would come in and ease monetary policy, demand would pick up, and people would be hired back and they would be making their widgets again. But as we've migrated to a service-based economy, and we're heavily a service-based economy, 85% of our workforce works in the service industry. It's a big part. And what we've found over time is that when people get laid off, they don't tend to get hired back so soon. Businesses have realized that, whether it's software advances or pushing more responsibilities onto customers or other efficiencies that are going on by being able to outsource, they don't need to hire people back as much. So as a result, the hiring process is much slower and it takes a lot longer for us to get back to where we were. So that is a big concern. The longer it takes, the slower the amount of disposable income, the less consumption going on, the slower the pace of the economic recovery. But consumption is key. This chart here shows consumption in terms of what people are spending. It's an interesting chart, the one on the left. It breaks consumption down into two different parts. The light blue is what we spend on goods. You know, whether we're buying a car, putting an addition on a house, sporting goods, whatever it may be. You can see actually the amount of spending on goods is higher now than what it was at any other peak before this recession started. Meanwhile, the spending on services is much lower. You know, think about people aren't going out to dinner. They're not traveling. They're not buying Broadway show tickets. They're not going to the movies. That has fallen and it's still significantly below. But you'll also notice the volumes of each, the amount of money that we spend, the consumption. 2/3 of it is on services, 1/3 is on goods. So we really need the service part to pop back up again. And that probably will not pop up again until we get to the point where people are comfortable going out and not getting the risk of getting COVID-19. That will take some time. But what's interesting is the shopping behavior of people. The chart on the right is retail sales. So this is goods only, this is not services. But you can see how people's spending has changed quite a bit. Clothing and accessory has plummeted. People like to try on clothes. They like to feel fabrics. They like to smell fragrances. And that doesn't happen online so easily. So that's a business that hasn't done well. Restaurants on bars, of course, that has fallen. Gas stations, well, you know, price of gasoline is a whole lot lower and people aren't buying as much volume as they used to. At the other end of the continuum, you have non-store sales. In the old days, that was your Fuller Brushman, your Funkin' Wagnalls encyclopedia sales, door-to-door salesman. Now it's Amazon, you know, internet. People have really gotten to the point that they really like that. They love the convenience. They love not having to go out and run the risk of catching the virus, which may lead to the disease. So that's been very, very strong. Sporting goods. Well, you can't spend your money going out to dinner and go to the movies. You might as well do something, some sort. And you see this. You go to a bike store, they're pretty darn empty. Food and beverage, you know, if you're not going out to dinner, you're buying it at home. Building materials, people are working in the yard. So you can see that the behavior has changed quite a bit in terms of what's happened in the last few months. But the problem is the risk of that continuing is pretty small. This chart here just shows some of the income coming into the house. The dark blue line is the amount of money that people receive from wages and salaries. Excuse me. The dark blue line is the amount of money coming in as transfer payments. This is payments from the federal government. And most people think of it as Social Security, VA benefits, food stamps, that sort of thing. But now it includes the enhanced unemployment insurance, and it also includes that $1,200 check. You can see that shot up quite a bit, but it's starting to come down again because, again, you don't get a $1,200 check is not a monthly thing, and the benefits will soon be falling in terms of the enhanced unemployment insurance. The light blue line, that's the amount of money that people receive from wages and salaries. And that's pretty stable and has been growing over time, but it really fell as a result of people being laid off. Add those numbers together and you get the gray columns. So you can see in the last 3 months, which is the second quarter, that was an awful lot of money going into households, much more than normally happens. It's almost 14% more money. So people were able to spend that money on those goods and whatever services they bought. But a lot of that money is going away, and you've got 27 million people unemployed. So it will be a slow moving process. And until we can get that wealth, that income coming into households, it's going to reduce the growth rate of this recovery. Now, all of this is having a little bit of a problem in regards to the Fed's, the Treasury's balance sheet. The dark blue line is the expenditure. So you can see that it shot up quite a bit. The light blue line is the revenue coming in, and it fell a little bit at the beginning of the recession, but that's because they deferred the payment of your April income taxes to July. You can see it bounced up a little bit, but it's down just a tad bit. And the column below is the net difference. What makes this impressive is if you take a look at the numbers, the outlays for the last 12 months is more than $6 trillion. The revenue coming in is more than $3 trillion. The federal government is spending $2 for every dollar that comes in. That's a big number. During the worst of the previous recession, it was $1.73. This will probably get close to $2.50. No one's complaining about it. You know, the money is needed. The relief money is needed so people can continue to buy food, to have shelter, and so forth. We have a very severe shock to this economy. That was what the big problem with the Depression was, is that there was no relief. So people got scared. And what did they do? Well, they withdrew money from their banks because there wasn't the FDIC insurance. That made it even worse. Banks started to fail. The Fed, during the Great Depression, they had problems because they had to increase interest rates to preserve the value of the dollar, which was linked to gold. The federal government offered no relief, and they got into a tariff war called the Smoot, as a result of the Smoot-Hawley Act. These are all things that are being avoided this time around, so it looks like we will have a recovery. But the question is how strong that will be, and that we don't know yet. It's still way too early into the scenario to see where we stand. But this chart gives you a little bit closer look in terms of how the government balance sheet has been working. The light blue is the January to July of last year. The dark blue is January to July of this year. So you can see revenue isn't much different. The outlays significantly different. Again, the spending is quite high. In terms of where they're spending the money, these are the more popular categories. What's interesting that despite having to issue more debt, the net interest is actually lower because interest rates are a whole lot lower. But it's all over on the right-hand side. Income security is part of the Treasury's balance sheet. This is to help people maintain a lifestyle. Unemployment insurance, VA benefits, retirement to federal employees, food stamps, that sort of thing. You can see this is where it shot up. Again, this is the category that had the $1,200 check. It's the category that had the enhanced unemployment insurance. So really, that's where the government spending is mostly focused. In regards to inflation, despite all this money being spent by the government, inflation is not going to be a problem. The risk is actually too low of inflation, not high inflation. Because although this is an awful lot of money, remember, it's not stimulus money. It's not additive. People just lost their income. This is money that's helping to help tide them over until they can get another job. So it's relief money. It's not stimulative at all. Furthermore, we just lost 10% of our economy. You know, that gives us an enormous output gap at a time when you have 27 million people collecting unemployment insurance. That is not a scenario for higher inflation at all. Inflation will actually stay quite low. So in terms of all of this, in terms of what the Fed's thinking, it's pretty consistent with what we're thinking. This series of next few charts here give you an idea. Here is GDP. The dark blue line, that's history. From 2015 to the present, you can see where GDP has been. And it's, as I mentioned earlier, it averaged around 2.25. The Fed thinks it's going to fall 6.5% in aggregate this year. The next 2 quarters will help boost it up a little bit. In 2021 and 2022, it's supposed to be at a whole lot stronger growth, much stronger than the long-term trend of what we've had in the past, mainly because of all the lower interest rates that are there. In terms of the unemployment rate, they think it's going to fall to about 9.3% by year end. But keep in mind, falling to 9.3% just tells us that more than half the people that lost their job over the last few months will still be unemployed. It'll fall to 6.5% and then 5.5%, but still, that's a number that's so much higher than what we had before the recession, in which case it was at 3.5%. In terms of inflation, I think inflation is going to stay relatively low, maybe just 1% this year. Yes, inflation is a little bit higher these few months that we have right now as businesses that are reopening or have to deal with the higher cost of living in a world of COVID-19, having to clean so much, having to put up plexiglass and so forth. But that'll only last a few months. Again, the underlying pressures are for lower inflation. Inflation will gradually drift up as the economy gets stronger, but the Fed has a target of 2%. And this is the first time they've not forecasted that to be met. So inflation will stay quite low. And then finally, in terms of interest rates, the Fed brought the federal funds rate, which is the basis for almost all interest rates, they brought it down to near zero. This is their forecast for the next few years. Jay Powell, who's head of the Fed, said, we're not even thinking about raising rates. It is not on the agenda. So just quickly in conclusion, the economy is good. It's not great. The trajectory of growth could be quite strong or not. A fiscal policy needs to be enacted, phase 4 of some sort. The House has already approved one that was more than $3 trillion in size. It's jokingly referred to as the kitchen sink bill because it includes everything, including the kitchen sink. Senate is a little bit more frugal. They couldn't decide. They went on vacation for a month. They'll come back the Tuesday after Labor Day and talk about it again. But some sort of level of enhanced unemployment insurance is needed just to keep households be able to stay where they're living and to provide food and so forth. So that will be the big factor, but the overwhelming factor is still the direction of the virus. Right now, the news is relatively good in terms of the amount of cases, the amount of hospitalizations. That's on a downward trajectory. Deaths is stabilized, but that's lagging. And that's as a result of the run-up we had in May and June. But right now, it looks like people are taking it quite seriously, the public health risk of it. And hopefully, it is something that we can minimize the risks of going forward. That's my talk. I can open it up to questions if you'd like.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Paul. For anyone that wants to ask a question, if you want to click the participant button on the bottom and raise your hand, I can call on you, but I do know we have a question already from Tim Brown. And so Tim, if you want to start us off, and I don't know, Melinda, if you can change the screen, so that we can.
That might be me.
Hello, good afternoon, and thank you for really, I found your talk really interesting and enjoyed it. The first thing that I was struck by is there's V's everywhere on this chart. They're all over the place. So I found that to be an interesting notion since, can you hear me okay? You got me?
Yeah.
Good, because I found that it was interesting to listen to a lot of the people telling in the literature that really wasn't possible. So I found that interesting to see them everywhere. And although I realized that how that works out over time was one of your key points. And so with that in mind, I thought to myself as you were going along, when I saw the difference on the income chart between the transfer payments and the income and that symmetry between those two lines, I thought to myself, what about the money that's still in the bank? So, you know, I look at the M1 and M2 measures and I think to myself, boy, there's a lot of money still sitting in the bank. And that's one of the things that I share when I publish. I wondered what your take was on how you I know you said that there's no stimulus out there because it's restorative. And I thought that was a great point for me to note. But how do you feel about that money in the bank and how that's going to be spent over time now that the transfer payments have kind of come off? Do you see that keeping those V's moving?
Yeah, that's a very important question. Yeah, there's a lot of money in the banks. The savings rate, which is a relatively obtuse number, but it is a good direction, is extraordinarily high. It's been at record levels for the last couple of months, mainly because all that money came in. And, you know, depending on where you are on the income spectrum and what kind of job you have, if you have the job that deals with hospitality, meaning, you know, anything from a hotel to an airline to a non-union airline job, keep in mind, restaurants, bars, chance of you getting employed in the next few months is extraordinarily small. So households like that have kept on to a lot of the money that they had and keeping it there because they're cautious. They realize that the risks are extraordinarily high and that we will not be bouncing back into this. This will not be a V-shaped recovery. This is going to be much more like a Nike swoosh where it drops dramatically right away and it takes years to get back. So that's an important thing, is that they're keeping it safe so that because of the uncertainty going forward. The other aspect of it is that, yes, there's an awful lot of money. And many clients have a great fear that it will lead to inflation. It can if it's used, but money sitting in a banking account does not cause inflation. Economists have a term they call velocity. It's the turning over of money. You know, you go and buy a car, in which case the dealer says, wow, demand's picking up, I'm going to order more cars. That causes the factory to hire more people. They get a wage, they spend their money. The people they spend it with make a profit, they spend their money. That's high velocity money. But in reality, this time around, velocity is plummeting. People are holding on to their money because of the great deal of uncertainty. So yes, there is a lot of cash there. There is potential for this to go and do well. The Fed has done an extremely great job of lowering interest rates to try and entice people to lever up their balance sheet, to borrow money, to buy that car, which will create the jobs. Because one person's spending is another person's income. That's what the Fed wants. But there's no joke in banking. You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it take out a loan.
Yeah.
And that's what you've got here. You've got very low rates, but you know, a small portion of the population can get a loan because you've got 27 million people unemployed. Banks are not overly eager to lend to people that have no way of paying back their, you know, way of showing that they can pay back that loan. So it's a very difficult trip that we have right now. And it's a big confidence vote that's needed in terms of people looking forward to the future, knowing that they're willing to take on risk. So even if you're employed, you know, what are the chances of you being unemployed in the next year or two? It's a risk. So yeah, there's plenty of money there, but you got to get the incentive for people to want to borrow it and spend it.
Yeah. Important philosophy.
Thank you for that. I see we have a question from past President Eric Weiss.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Really, really fascinating. I have kind of a two-part question. Rotary is a non-political organization, of course, so this is not a trick question, but I'm curious about two things. One, do you think that the election itself could have an impact in any kind of dramatic way to the figures you're presenting, with either candidate winning? And then my second question, or maybe you want to reverse them, is what do you think the international financial picture's impact on the United States financial picture is going to be?
Okay, two really good questions. I'll keep it in that order because it's going to take me a little time to think of an answer to the second one. In terms of the upcoming election, I think it's pretty safe to assume that the House will stay in Democratic hands. The White House right now, it looks like it's slightly tilted towards moving towards Joe Biden, but it's a very slight amount. You know, the United States is not a popular vote, as we know, so that plays well into the story that we have here. If Biden wins and has big coattails, that may cause the Senate to switch over to a slight majority to the Democrats, but otherwise it will probably stay in Republican hands. For investors, they like that sort of thing. There's the strong belief that if you don't have one sweep by one party, that causes gridlock in Washington, and that, of course, is good because that means politics is staying away and letting business people do their business. This time is a little different. I think if Joe Biden became president, public health would be a far more important and structured in terms of dealing with the virus. I mean, the rest of the world has pretty much had no problems fixing the problems. The United States seems to be quite slow in that. So that's a severe problem for this economic recovery. The international part in terms of what will happen there. Oh, I'm sorry, just to finish up there. Taxes will change a little bit, but it's relatively benign. You know, corporate income taxes will go up, well, quite a bit to where they were before, but you know, the income taxes will go up for the wealthy. It's more of a fair tax policy in terms of what Biden is trying to put forth in terms of different socioeconomic groups. But to the international question, they were much slower at responding to the coronavirus in terms of both fiscal and monetary policy. Europe has changed quite a bit. They've really caught up. In fact, the most recent plan is with the EU, is they're borrowing as the EU, which allows the ECB to buy all that debt, to monetize it, much like the Fed buys Treasury debt here. And that will help them out quite a bit. They've decided to stick as a unit. This is the first time in their history that they've done that, because in the past it was always separate governments who would issue debt. So that's a big move by them. They already had low interest rates, so they didn't need to lower them anymore. They were actually, it's negative in terms of their overnight rate. Their longer term rates, by and large, are negative. The massive amount of quantitative easing. So things are looking pretty good for Europe, and that's one of the reasons for the weakness in the dollar in the last few weeks. China seems to be doing well in the aspect of sales. Manufacturing's not as strong. Manufacturing's not as strong because global demand isn't as strong. So they'll have a slow recovery coming out. They don't have the big stimulus plan like they had a decade ago during the global financial crisis, because they're already highly levered to start with. So they will have a slow process in terms of coming out. But the global economy is part of one of the reasons why this trajectory of the US economy is slow. You know, if the whole world is slow, it's pretty hard for us to be a whole lot faster, especially when we have so many people that are unemployed. So it will be a long, slow slog to get out of this recovery. We will get out of it. We're on the right things are being done by the federal government and the Fed, but it's just a slow process.
Our last question will be from past President Todd Johnson, also known as the de facto mayor of Beverly Hills.
Well, I don't know about that, but nice to see everyone, by the way. Paul, I have a question. My wife is wanting to do a remodel on a kitchen. And do you think this is a time to do a remodel on a house? I mean, I know that money's cheap, I guess, so to speak, and stuff, but what are your thoughts?
She's not the only one. One of the hardest areas to find people to work is in construction right now. Because if you think about how the world has changed, one, interest rates have come down an awful lot. Mortgage rates, especially 30-year mortgage rates, are below 3% now, an all-time low. At the same time, you have the coronavirus, which is forcing many people to want to move out of expensive urban areas into suburbs. So as a result, housing in the last 2 months has just exploded in terms of growth. The cost of lumber, this is a big shock to the world. The cost of lumber has more than doubled in the last 2 months because the demand is so strong. So you're not the only one there wanting to do something, but it's just a comfort level of you in terms of whether you want to. Do you have comfort in being able to take on the debt needed for an addition? I know my wife's ideas are not too cheap. Imagine maybe yours are too, Todd. I don't know.
No, she's an amazing woman, but she's not cheap. Oh, thank you.
You know,
yeah.
Again, our outlook is that the economy is on an upward trajectory. We don't know how strong it's going to be. We don't know how much wealth creation you're going to continue to get with your investments. But at least it's on an upward trajectory. That's really, to me, the most important thing that we can have.
Thank you for your time.
Todd, we all know that was just a loaded question. You got the money just sitting under the couch mattress, so don't even try to say otherwise. But Paul, thank you so much for being our speaker today. One of the things that we do at LA5, we have a scholarship program, which is one of the biggest in LAUSD. Last year, under past President Rick Gibson, we gave a record amount of $250,000 to the most deserving, high-performing students in LAUSD, and they're all going to the best universities in the country, all virtually at the moment. But we want to present you the certificate, virtual certificate of $1,000 made in your name to our LA5 Scholarship Fund, which is going to help a deserving student reach their dream of an education. So, so thank you very much, Paul, for
And that's a
for
really
taking the
nice
time.
gift. Thank you.
And this is how we do our Zoom applause now. So thank you very much for spending the time.
It's been a pleasure being here. Thank you, Ken.
Okay.
Bye-bye, all.
So next up, we have the golden voice, perfectly mic-tuned voice of Walker Rayleigh, who is going to tell us about our club assembly that's coming up here.
As you probably already know, we are having our assembly. We're calling it a conversation on Saturday, August 29th from 9:30 until noon. We want as many of our active and honorary members to attend that session because of the importance of the issues and conversations that we will have. You've already received an email giving you a chance to register and also to fill out a survey. And in exactly 12 minutes, another email will come out to each of you where you can easily click on the registration link as well as the anonymous survey. We really need the support of as many people as possible. We've got about 45 so far. We need about 150 to be a representative group of our club. So register, send in the survey, and we look forward to seeing you all together on Saturday, the 29th. Back to you, Ken.
Great, thank you, Walker. So everyone, you heard what he said, register. Now back to executive producer Melinda. I think you've got a couple slides. Talk about, what do we got, birthdays and upcoming meetings?
Yeah, we're gonna celebrate some August birthdays today and some August Rotary anniversaries. So let me just get this guy going.
It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's a great day. That's what we say. Happy birthday to you. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's your birthday. Happy birthday. It's a great day. That's what we say. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday to all of our August birthday-ites. And just one more video, guys. Bear with us. Rotary anniversaries. Lots of years of service in that video.
Fantastic. I think I see Darren Marinoff is here, so happy birthday. I think I saw Azim. Azim's birthday's this weekend. Happy birthday. Thanks for joining us at Rotary. Who else did I see on there? There was a few others. Anyways, that's great. Nice slides. Okay. Oh, look at this. My favorite part of the meeting. See this gavel? This thing has got wear and tear. This gavel, I think I think Don Crocker, this goes back to at least Don Crocker, could go back to Paul Metzel for fines. I cannot preside as a guest host of a meeting and not have fines. Darren Marinoff, turn your screen on. I think Bo's there. You guys can unmute for a second. So, you know, these guys are the opposite of me. They are so generous. They are so smart. They have so much knowledge. They don't need the spotlight at all. But during the business exchange, which we had on Thursday, I believe, or Tuesday, that Ivan is the co-chair of. Hello, Ivan. I just saw you pop on, and past President Charisse. They right at the gate, you know, you get to do your introduction, but Charisse and Ivan have said if you go over, you got to pay a fine. And both of these gentlemen, who already sponsor LA5 so much, said, you know what, I'm gonna go over. I'm gonna go over my 30 seconds. Just fine me. And they did their introduction and said you could just fine me. And so, with that, I have to levy. I get the honor. I get the honor to levy the fine. Bowley from NFP, $25. Thank you for that. And Darren Marinoff of Marinoff and Company, you too, $25. You want to quickly say just in 5 seconds what you do, or you're gonna get fined again? Bo.
I think I'm out of money now, so I'll just keep shut here.
Okay, smart. How about you,
My
Darren?
last $25.
How about you, Darren? No?
Yeah.
Smart. Okay. My last fine is a little bit bigger. You know, I was asked to preside over this meeting, and it is supposed to be a big honor. I mean, I got out my sports coat. I have not worn this in 6 months. I didn't even know if I could find it just for this occasion. But there were several past presidents, and you know, I do this a lot, and I'm a little bit overused. It looks like I'm quite pathetic that I need the mic because I do this so much. I think this is my 10th or 12th meeting filling in, and there are past presidents that we have not seen in a while, but they turned down President Matt when asked for the honor of presiding over. And so fines are not really supposed to be penalties. They're supposed to be more celebratory. But it's just not acceptable. So past President Mike Burkholm, past President Dave Meschel, and past President Mark Lika, you're not on the call. You are too afraid to be on the call. You were asked to do this. And so you are each getting fined $50. I got one more for Charisse Older, past President Charisse. She was also asked. She's actually on a plane, and Matt knew that she actually couldn't be here, but he threw her under the bus and told me that she declined him. So I'm just gonna fine her because as a celebratory that she's on vacation on a plane, going somewhere nice and fun. So Charisse gets a $50. So that's $200. I made $250 for the club today. I feel good about that. You know, so anyways, there you go. Thank you. Thank you all for your generosity.
Wait, you can't find her in absentia. You can't do that.
I can, and I just did. It's a Zoom. This is the Zoom world where everything's upside down. We're all sitting, you know, I'm not even wearing pants, so we can do whatever.
She has been Zoomed.
So she's been fined. She actually knows she's been fined. I actually asked her beforehand. I told her she's going to be fined. So she has been actually, and all those people that I just mentioned, they've actually already paid their fines. That's how efficient we are. Okay. Last remarks. As we close out, and look at this. I'm closing on time, so I haven't even lost my edge. Our last thing is our dance party. And I believe our board member, Jerry Jimenez, it's his honor to choose the song to take us out.
Okay. Well, so this goes out to past President Eric Weiss. Eric, I was thinking about summer. I was thinking about a project that you and I did together, or that a couple, maybe 5-7 years ago with Josh Duhamel, where he's wearing a pink bunny suit in Venice Beach and harassing a bunch of people. And we had so much fun, and it just reminded me of summer, and it made put a smile on my face. And so this is the song that we licensed that was popular at that time. So Melinda.
Crazy what I'm about to say. Sunshine, she's here. You can take a break. I'm a hot air balloon that could go to space. With the air, like I don't care, baby, by the way. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news talking this and that. Well, give me all you got and don't hold it back. Well, I should probably warn you, I'll be just fine. No offense to you, don't waste your time. Here's why. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like a room without a roof. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you know what happiness is to you. Because I'm happy. Clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
Ring the bell, Ken.
Bring me down.
Have a great weekend, everyone.